Alright, guys, welcome to the Warren and Werby podcast. We are joined by Marcel for today's episode, also the first episode that we're recording.
Episode 1.
So, hopefully, you can enjoy the podcast as we talk about mainly the Collingwood Football Club for today. So, lads, joined by two Collingwood supporters, what do we think's happening over at Collingwood?
Um, everything. Everything's going wrong, really. I think the problems start from the top, really. The board members, the coaching staff. That's where the big problem is. You can't put too much of it on the players because they don't have control over the rest of the situation. I mean, they are the ones who are, um, responsible for getting the 4 points every week. But I mean, there's not really much they can do when there's a lot of youth in the team who are still trying to get experience, and when the coaching from Buckley and his staff is just not up to scratch. I think tactically, Buckley in the past has been really good, but this season he inferior to everybody else.
Yeah, Herbie, what
Yeah,
do you think, mate?
yeah. Look, I tend to agree with him. I struggle to see. I mean, a lot of the blame in the media and public opinions have been on Buckley and the solution trying to be to remove Buckley. I personally don't see that as a solution to the problem. I think you could just put it down to what was a pretty shocking trade period with some salary cap issues and look, I think we just have a really young team at this stage. Experience is going to help with hopefully later in the season we can work more as a team and bond together a little bit more. But yeah, the support staff have to lift because there's been too much blame and pressure on the players to continue to perform. And look, Collingwood's pulled pretty close to some pretty competitive teams. I mean, 10 points to Geelong, 1 point to both Port Adelaide and Brisbane throughout the season, who are some pretty competitive teams come September. So um, I
Yeah,
think the support staff need to lift and they really need to have a look in what to find the solution.
Yeah, it's a great point you make, especially with those good teams. There's my 10 to Geelong and 1 to the likes of Brisbane and Port Adelaide. But then it comes down to the games where you'd think it'd be closer. The Sydney game, you lost by 5 goals, it was. So there's been some pretty shocking performances. The media has deemed it as, um, was it putrid footy that Daisy Thomas called it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
shocking.
Jonathan Brown described the ball movement from Collingwood against Geelong as the worst he's ever seen, or something like that. So, I mean, that just really says it. I mean, I think every person who knows and understands the game of footy knows that that was under 10s football. That wasn't professional level at all. And actually, I got a bit of breaking news that's just come from the last day or so. There is a Collingwood board planned takeover. So, from judging by what it looks like here, um, Jeff Brown, the former managing director of Channel 9, has gone public saying that he plans to run the club. So he wants to replace Mark Corder, who was Eddie Maguire's replacement as president, and he wants to put three of his own people on the club's board. There's 7 people on the board of the club here. Um, However, the position from the current board members at Collingwood, they've put together a statement, and a quote from that said, "A coup is not warranted. It has not been justified and cannot be justified." So, looks like there is a lot of problems going on up there, and you have to wonder, you have to speculate, is that what's causing the problems? I think so. I think
Oh,
that's where I think that's where the root of the problem is. From a fan point of view, I'm open to new management, but in terms of what it's going to do long term, we don't know. So we have to just wait and see what happens with it.
yeah, look, I tend to agree with Marcel. Like it's at this stage, Collingwood is really struggling, and as you said, from a fan's point of view, it's worth a shot because we don't know the problem at this stage, and it's worth investigating whether it is performance, whether it is coaching staff, whether it is head management. So I think it is definitely worth a gamble. Um, look, I think the future is definitely bright for Collingwood if they can figure out what is going wrong in their system. But um, yeah, at this stage, it's all a bit of a mess, and they just need to sort it out backstage.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a pretty big toll on the players. You got a game coming up in 2 days, and Collingwood's all throughout the news with their pretty poor management takeover, I guess, from Jeff Brown. He hasn't done the smoothest job. It's been in the media that it's been very ugly trying to transition from the old to the new. So the players looking at that, they've got to be demoralised would be a good word to use, as
Yeah,
they
I
just
reckon spot on.
they don't know what's happening. So they don't know who's going to be in and whether they have a, because if the new management doesn't like them or they're not performing, they're going to get shipped out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, or even worse, delisted. Like that I think is especially a young player's big fear is getting delisted when there's a new coach coming in or multiple new coaches, but a new board. I think even for players who have been there for a long time, I think they're worried that they could be worried too, depending on you know whether they're going to be at the club in a couple of years' time, or whether they're going to have to move on or eventually retire.
Yeah,
But I think if you're looking at it from somebody like Scott Pendlebury's point of view, the guy's 33. Who knows how many years he has left, and who knows how many of those years he wants to spend at Collingwood. Um, Especially since with what's going on. So yeah, you really don't know much from a I guess a fan point of view as to what's going on um, with the players as well as with the coaches. What kind of conversations are these guys having with each other? What's everybody, feeling? Is there some sort of, you know, um, is there some sort of plan to actually do not to actually, lose games? I mean, I'm not saying that they're tanking, but I mean, you have to look at this and you go, well, we've got a lot less injuries than we've had in previous seasons, and we've made finals in those years. So, and now, look at us, we're 16th, and we've got nowhere near the same amount of injuries. So
yeah,
you, ca- you so you can't put it down to player fitness. It's definitely much more political than that.
I absolutely agree with you, Marcel. I mean, I think it is also once you do get that structure right, I think the management of the actual team needs to be improved also. So I know that bringing Selwood across as a team list manager from Geelong to Collingwood from mid-season should be a real kick to hopefully get that list management back to where it was and has been. Um, I think you see a lot of teams in the modern era go through these stages of rebuild, and Collingwood's been on a pretty good stretch for the last few years. I feel like it's their time to rebuild and reset the staff, reset the players. Like if you're going to have a tactic going into games, like an average scoring mark, if you're scoring 68 points in a game, you're not winning many games of football. Like
No.
it's
No,
just
and
that.
Herbie, I've actually got two questions for you that I want to hear your opinion on. Number one, does a structure reshuffle always equal a good and successful rebuild? Because things can always go wrong, and you have to look at it and go, is it worth it? Is this going to mean good things in the future? And the second question I have for you is, um, do you think the salary cap debacle that we had last year with Phillips, Stevenson, and Treloar, do you think that was the start of our rebuild, and then the second major event being um, the the downfall, I guess you could say, of Eddie Maguire?
Well, to address the first question, I'd say that um, not always does that reshuffle in the players always like correlate to what a team will want, but I definitely think it is worth a gamble at this stage. We saw last weekend we saw Pendlebury play half forward from the start of the game. which I feel like Collingwood's trying new things. And while it didn't pay off at all. But you keep looking for it. You keep looking for a resolution to the issue. Um, and I think Collingwood's just got to find that mix with a lot of young talent coming in, and that reshuffle. Um, if you really utilize that young talent in the new positions, I think you really can bring that team to life, because on paper it is a really strong team, but they just need to really, really try and utilize the full extent of the talent in most of the players.
So what you're saying is, player-wise, the key to a good, successful rebuild is focusing on making the youth players that we've got now as best as they can be going
I,
forward.
I tend to think so, because if you see a player like a Scott Pendlebury, as you were saying earlier, who knows how long he's got left? He's a fantastic captain and a leader. And your other senior players, your Grundy, side bottom, they really need to stand tall and show this leadership, because I think the young talent we have could go a really long way. We saw a little bit of Poulter on the weekend. Bo McCreary was really good. Trent Bianco got plenty of touches. So I think there is plenty of strong youth in the Collingwood lineup, but in
And
terms of a
Isaac
structure
Quaynor
rebuild,
as well. He's a
Isaac
gun.
Wayne has been on fire. So I think in terms of a structure rebuild, you need to utilize the younger talent and also access, the veterans and their experience, and really teach the young players to develop a really strong team culture.
And the
Speaking
second
of
question,
the
and the second question I had for you, Herbie, do you think that the start of the rebuild was those three players leaving last season, at the end of last season?
Just to quickly address it, as Terran needed to move on to something else, but I think that was possibly our downfall. That was a massive hit for us. It was a long time coming. Our salary cap has been pretty limited the last couple of seasons. I did see it. You could see it kind of unfolding before it happened, but um, I think that was a big wake up call for us to know that, the teamwork needs to be stronger rather than relying on specific players. And I think that this season should also supply us with some players who weren't so, focused on last season, with the strong, like Treloar and your Phillips taking charge in the midfield. Getting some others some game time should be really beneficial in, you know, succeeding years.
Yeah, fair point. Taryn, you were going to say something, mate.
yeah, maybe unbeknownst to you blokes, but he's had the mid-season draft last night. Collingwood had the third pick and the 18th pick, and using both picks, Ash Johnson, who we were speaking about before, high-flying forward, so hopefully boot Pendlebury out of that role back into the midfield so he can slot in, and Aiden Begg, who is interesting because he's a forward ruckman listed, and with the exclusion of Grundy for the next 3 weeks to a month, you might see him get onto the ground possibly.
Yeah, I
So what?
could, I could definitely
I,
see him being
I,
priority.
I do see that. I do. Yeah, Grundy for the weeks that he'll be out is a massive miss, because whether it's debatable or not, he's definitely easy top two ruckman in the competition, and missing him in a season where the rest of the team has been extremely terribly poor will make us even worse. And I don't see us winning the games that he's out, against Adelaide, especially away from home. I don't see that happening.
Mate, every game's away from home from now on.
That's
There's
true.
no
Yeah,
travel
that's
for us
true.
now.
Yeah, the lockdown situation in Victoria, which is something which is a completely different topic, but yeah,
One that we won't talk about
those no,
today.
we won't. But
So Collingwood have got 2 games in the estimated time
these
Grundy's out. Round 14 you have the bye. So round 12 you've got Riley O'Brien and the Adelaide Crows, and then the next week you've got
we've got the
arguably the
demons.
best ruckman in the league, Max
So
Gawn.
yeah, the demons. What I said about the Adelaide game, multiply that by 20 for the Melbourne game on Queen's birthday, because this game, this game is going to be hard to watch, and I think we will lose this game by more than 50 points. That is
Yeah,
my prediction.
it's
But
going to be
a
tough
question for
without
you
him.
blokes. Do you think that the medical staff try and rush Grundy into being healthy for the game to at
No,
least try and put
No,
up a contest?
no, because Grundy's injury is a neck injury, I believe.
Yes,
yeah,
that is right.
So I think neck and head injuries, they're going forward. They're definitely going to be taken a lot more seriously, and I think more so head injuries, but still neck injuries are still serious. Even if it's something as small as a pinched nerve, I don't think they're going to really rush him back. I think they're going to have to make sure that he's comfortable, before he can actually play at his best high level again. But in my opinion, the safe thing really is just to not play him for this one. Take the loss, fight hard against Adelaide. Maybe you can try and scrape a win there. If not, get close. But I think you have to wait to bring back one of your best players, because you just can't take the risk of aggravating an injury and making it even worse. So
Yeah, I tend to
that's
absolutely
that's my
agree
view
with
on it.
you. I feel like it's if we were, 10th position fighting for a tight race at finals, I could definitely see it as a possibility. But at this stage in time, I can't see any logical point of rushing him back in the risk of injuring him further.
But I think we're going to get him back soon anyway. If not, maybe this round. Jamie Elliott coming back from injury against that he suffered against Carlton, I believe, in round 2. I think it was.
Yeah,
Well, I think it was a lower leg. I don't think it was a calf injury. I think it was a lower leg. I think even fracture, maybe.
I looked at his injury yesterday. I don't fully remember. I'll look at it now. But just after this, we'll move on to the final topic for today, Carlton and their, I guess, early emergence, but then they're falling off. Jamie Elliott fractured his leg. It was.
Yes, he did. He broke his fibula in his right leg. So yeah, it was a leg fracture.
So
But yeah, I think if Elliott comes back, the forward line may be boosted a little bit. But then
got to get it
again,
in there first.
yeah, you got to get the ball inside 50 first, and I think that's what we're actually getting inside forward 50 is not a problem for us per se. It's just more so the accuracy. The goal kicking is shocking. One thing which this goes back a long, long, long time, maybe 5, 6 years, maybe even after Travis Cloak left. But we need somebody who's an elite goal kicker whose job is to put the ball between the big sticks from either 20 meters out or 60 meters out. You need somebody like that. Collingwood Collingwood missed out, I think, when they didn't get Jeremy Cameron in the trade period when he moved from Greater Western Sydney
I don't
to
think
uh,
I don't think he
to
was
Geelong.
going anywhere other than Geelong. I think he had his mind made and that he didn't
Yeah,
want to go anywhere
definitely.
else.
No, I think that too. But because partnering up with Tom Hawkins is a lot more, I guess, exciting than partnering up with Myercheck or DeGoey, who are good players, mind you, but they're not as big a name as Tom Hawkins. And also, yeah, Collingwood are missing somebody like a Tom Hawkins, like a Josh Kennedy, like a Jeremy Cameron. Somebody who can challenge for the Coleman year in, year out. That's another thing Collingwood need. A big target who can hit the target and kick goals from anywhere. So that's another trade aspect to look at. So
Marcel, you've been called out. We've got Awesome1275, also known as Jamie Battaglia, in the chat, who has said Marcel does not know what he's talking about.
well, I'm sorry, Jamie, but you are known for having a man crush on Matt Rao, who in the last 2 years has not been able to get out of a hospital. So, I mean,
Oh,
if that's not knowing anything about football, then what you're doing is 10 times worse, mate.
Alright, guys, we've just run over 21 minutes. I think that'll do us for today.
pretty good run.
It was great to see the out. Sorry, I can't even speak. The showing from the chat. They've been very active. It was good to talk to you blokes for today, and we'll thank you to Marcel for
Cheers,
featuring
Marcel.
on the podcast for the first
Thank you,
episode,
boys.
and we'll catch you in the next one. See you later, guys.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you guys. Thanks.